Alright, so tech is moving incredibly fast because I was trying to backtrack and kind of look at my history with building PCs and just getting into PC gaming and just tech culture and all that. And so for some reason, I guess I kind of mixed it up with cosplay culture and stuff because I started cosplaying around 2015. And so I thought maybe, did I start building a computer? Was it 2015? Or maybe it was right before 2014? And then I looked up my videos. Apparently my first built gaming PC was 2013, 5 years ago in July. So 5 years ago this month. And then of course I was learning about PCs even before then. But my channel was, I started this channel back in 2011. And I didn't have any cameras like this. I just had a phone. And I remember it was just a crappy Android phone with a 720p camera, but it was crazy because it was, oh my god, it was HD 720p camera on your phone, and the phone was dual core. It had a fucking dual core inside the phone. But you know, times went by quickly and stuff, and you know, Android had its own issues back then. So the video was pretty bad. And then my channel was just focused on gaming since I had a capture device, a pretty good capture device. So I just did video capture device, gaming like that. And then if I try to do any vlogs, it would just be on my phone with like a lamp or something. And it was pretty garbage. And of course I didn't really know how to speak to the camera. So overall it was really bad. In my tech talks going forward, I kind of want to be less tech jargon because I like quickly realized I'm like a very small percentage of people that actually understands all this tech junk. So I have to kind of translate it as best as I can to other people so everybody else can learn. So I was looking on a PC gaming board on IGN.com before I built my computer, and I was asking people for tips and advice and stuff, and I was just going in there nearly blind. And they recommended some cheap stuff because they wanted to keep me under budget, and then, you know, invest a lot of money in the graphics card, which is pretty smart because you gotta have, you know, a decent amount of money in the graphics card, but still a pretty good chunk in the CPU and the motherboard and stuff. The rest can go to like RAM, process, or power supply and whatever. But so I spent most of the money on the GTX 670 at the time, and it was a really freaking good graphics card. And I was like, man, this can run freaking almost everything at 1080p, maxed out. I remember I was playing Battlefield 3 and everything. And playing Battlefield 3 on PC was amazing because playing it on Xbox 360, like the max people you can get was like what, 12 vs 12, and they had these huge maps. So it was like, what, you know, what is this? And then you play on PC and there's like 80 people or whatever. Well, I think there was only like 64, but yeah, it was a lot of people. And then that was another new thing that came out. So around the time I was building my computer, they did the upgrade from PCIe 2.0 to PCIe 3.0, and then a lot of the GPU card manufacturers were using this to, like, you know, flare their stuff. They're like, well, now we can max out the bandwidth with new graphical stuff, and it can max out your games even more, which wasn't completely true. Of course, you know, with a more bandwidth and stuff, you can send more stuff through, but their graphics cards didn't really perform that much better because, you know, they would have to like put more money in and like actually make it that much more better. And then my CPU, I went kind of cheap with AMD, but really people give AMD so much crap because it is cheaper compared to like Intel and stuff, but it still is really good stuff, and it's like good bang for your buck or whatever, sort of. You really have to look and see where they match up, the different processors with AMD and Intel. So I ended up going with the AMD FX 8350, I believe it was. I originally got advice from the PC tech board people to go with this one motherboard, but I found one other AMD motherboard. I think it was like the only other AMD motherboard ever made that had PCIe 3.0 Gen 3 or whatever for that processor, for the AMD FX 8350, and it was an Asus Sabertooth motherboard. I don't remember, I think it was a 990 FX Gen 3 R2, something like that. But the thing with the GPU is I just kept seeing all these other things that are coming out, because I remember they were like, well, you can just wait a little bit because the 700 series are probably going to come out and you can just get a 700 series card. And I was like, I don't know, man. I've been waiting and waiting, you know, saving up for a gaming PC, so I'm just going to go for it. So I got the 670, and then I kept seeing the other things. I remember seeing the AMD 7990, which was a dual GPU card, because they were doing a lot of experimentation back then, and there was more dual GPU chips on one single PCB for the GPU cards. And so they really didn't run well, and I learned that the hard way. I bought it was like $1,000, I remember, and playing Battlefield 3 with like the Vietnam expansion pack, and just bullets were like screen tearing, and it was horrible. Like the graphics were like all effing up, and some people said, oh well, maybe it's the game, but I remember Battlefield was like, well, Battlefield is enhanced for AMD graphics, and I was like, oh shit, son, really? And so if I buy this AMD card, it's gonna be even better for Battlefield? And then it's like the top tier, $1,000, $79.90, and yeah, it was garbage, and it had this horrible coil whine. I never heard coil whine before. It's just this 24/7 when you're gaming. If the computer's just idle, then you won't hear anything, but when you're gaming, you'll just hear that pitch of a noise, and it is terrible. So of course I sent that back right away and got my money back. But so I didn't really have a graphics card, because I think I might have sold the 670 by then. So I was like, well, maybe I should jump into the 700 series like they're saying. So I went with the GTX 780. I had that for like 3 years probably. But the thing was, when I had the 780 and I played Battlefield 3, I was still getting some stuttering here and there, or the frame rate wasn't as good, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense, because this is a higher tier 700 series graphics card compared to the 670 that I had before. And they even had a 680, but I think that was a dual GPU card also. So I had the 670, and then I upgraded to a 780, but I was still having these problems. But I was still new to the PC scene, and I didn't realize the whole drivers thing. So, you know, well, it's really easy these days. You can just download a driver for your graphics card if a little pop-up thingy comes up and it's like, oh, there's an update for your graphics card. All you gotta do is update the driver, and they keep updating the drivers throughout the year, which help like optimize the graphics card to play with different titles. And so I used that 780 for the longest time until I upgraded my PC in 2016. So I had those 2013 to 2016. And I kept doing video editing and streaming and all this stuff, and the AMD FX 8350 just wasn't cutting it. So I upgraded to Intel, what was it? The 5820K, I want to say, because it was a high-end processor, the enhanced, or what the hell were they called? Extreme processors, whatever. Intel, all of these people have horrible naming schemes. So it was a higher end extreme processor, but it was the lower end of the extreme processors, and it's still the one that I have now. So it was a pretty decent upgrade, but it wasn't as big of an upgrade as I thought it would be, because people like really go on Intel and they're like, oh yeah, Intel's so great, AMD, F them, and all that. Really, it's not that big of a difference sometimes. There can be differences, but people really go all out with the whole fanboy stuff. So I had the GTX 780, but around that time when I was upgrading my PC, that was the first time when I had my 4K TV. I had a 4K TV end of 2016, And I was like, I want to use this to the full potential. The 780 can do 4K resolution, but it can only do a max of 30 frames per second at 4K because of a bunch of other stuff. I don't want to go into tech. I don't want to go too much into tech on that. So when I upgraded the GPU, I went with the GTX 1080 because they had the 780 and then they skipped the 880, or they had an 800 series on laptops and stuff, and I think mobile stuff, but they didn't have it on desktops, and then they went with the 900 series and then the 10 or 1000 series or whatever. Yeah. So anyways, so that's where we're still at. It's been 2 years. There hasn't been a new NVIDIA graphics card. Still at the GTX 1080. My CPU is still better than some of the better or as good as some of the top of the line Intel CPUs. AMD has caught up to Intel and NVIDIA, but NVIDIA and Intel, they've just been kind of relaxing and letting AMD pretty much play catch up. So I've actually been thinking about kind of tearing down my entire CPU or my entire computer again and going piece by piece and talking about each piece in its own separate video, and I don't know, just doing something crazy like that, because I want to do more tech topics and I want to talk more about my computer, because I haven't really even I've hardly brushed my own computer in the more modern format that I've done, because like I said, my last tech videos with the computers were like back in 2013. I did a little upgrade video back in 2016, but now it's 2018. It's already half the year is over. Time is just going by, and I gotta play catch up like AMD. But yeah, man. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. You know, we can talk some more about tech, and maybe you can leave a suggestion if you want me to talk about a certain thing about tech, a certain topic, or a certain thing that I have. But I have some other product reviews that I have lined up of things that I already have, of course, because I don't have any money to buy any new stuff, but whatever. But subscribe to my channel if you want to see more tech stuff. See you guys later.